Can you hear it, folks? Yep, I can hear it. That clock is ticking and it's after 11, which means it's time for your favorite show and mine, Countdown to Armageddon. And this is Publius coming at you. Today's topic is reparations. It seems that another committee in Congress has put out the idea and is trying to pass the idea of paying reparations to the black community for slavery and Jim Crow. Well, it passed purely on party lines, of course. But there's a problem in this, and I think it's something that we need to examine. Number one, I want to start out with by stating slavery is evil. It's evil now, and it always will be. Part of the problem we have is that it wasn't seen that way back in the past. In the past, people could look at each other and say, well, you're different because you're black. I don't have to treat you the same way. Now, granted, this is what seems to be being motivated today from the other angle. But we'll get to that in another show. The idea now is because they were treated poorly in the past, they were enslaved, beaten, in some cases. Then the Jim Crow laws came in to keep them separate, quote, separate but equal, which they weren't equal, separate but downtrodden. And now you want to pay their descendants. Well, let's look at this a little bit realistically. How? How do you pay the descendants? How do you figure out who is a descendant? Okay, I guess you could require that they show that their family's been in this country for an extended period of time. So once you have a pool of people that you figure are the descendants of slavery and descendants of the blacks that were during Jim Crow, how many millions of people are we talking? Right now we have approximately, I think they say we have 350 million people in the United States, 20% of which are supposed to be black. So let's figure that out. 20% of 350 million, it's 35 million for 10%, 70 million people. Okay, so you got 70 million people. How much are you going to give them? $1,000? $1,000 would be a joke. $10,000. $10,000 would be a little bit better, but the thing is, okay, 70 million people, $10,000. How much money are you giving out? Look, Publius is not a mathematician. I'm not going to roll this off the top of my head. But you can figure $10,000 is a 1 with 4 zeros. So let's go ahead and with 35 million people, you're going to add a 0. That's 350 million. 70 million. 70 million black people in the country. 70 million, that's 700 million. Add another 3 zeros. $700 billion to pay this off, to give them each $10,000. I'll tell you right now, if that's the end of it, do it. But that's not going to be the end of it, is it? If you gave every person who was black $10,000 and said, here, we apologize for the mistakes of the past, we're done. But we're not going to be done, are we? There's a group of people that want to continue to claim victimhood, and they're using reparations as one of their methods. What you have now is you have Biden's administration trying to find ways to give more and more special privileges to black people. You have cities in this country that are giving special privileges to minorities, all because, in some sense, of repaying them for what's happened in the past. So what you're basically doing is saying, we're going to punish the whites for what happened in the past. This is not equality. This is not fair. Fair is you treat everybody the same. But instead, you want to talk about reparations. We need to pay them back. Okay. Is it done? Once they're paid back, does that mean no more special privileges? That they are to be treated the exact same way as everybody else in society? If that's the case, then it's worth the money. If it's not the case, if it's going to be, well, we're going to pay $700 billion, and then we still need to keep up all these other programs. No. That's not fair. You're just justifying giving money. The reparations would never end. You know, what's the old phrase? When you pay the day and they never go away? Same thing. When you start paying off a segment of society for mistakes of the past, when does it end? How many billions of dollars? Is it going to be $700 billion this year? And then another 4 years down the line, they're going to say, well, $10,000 really doesn't make up for everything. Which in a lot of ways it doesn't, let's be honest. When does it end? Do you end this when blacks are running the country and then the former slaves are now the slave owners? Is that the only way to make things right? Make the whites the slaves? I don't know. You answer me. Ask yourself, what does it take to finally make up for the past? Now keep in mind, this is the past. Even Jim Crow stopped. What is it, 50 years ago? Give or take. So a lot of people are alive today that had no part in any of this. And yet their taxes would go to pay for this. You're going to make people pay for the actions of their grandfathers or their great-grandfathers or further. Why? What does this actually do? Does this help? Does this end the problems? If it doesn't, then you're just wasting money. If all it does is become a never-ending cycle of pay and pay and pay, then all you're going to do is build more and more resentment. Now, I've said before that it seems like society is out pushing this idea of a race war. And it's one of many wars they seem to want to push. So what are we going to do? Well, until they come up with something that actually makes sense in a way they're going to apply this, then the idea of reparations is stupid. $100 a person is a joke. I mean, let's be honest. You're not going to help anybody by giving them $100. It's such a little bit of help that it doesn't do any real long-term benefit to them. So, what can you do? Well, let's take a look. That's what they need to do. They need to stop and take a look. The idea that we should in some way apologize, I agree. I think society, the U.S. government should come out and say, look, we're sorry. We screwed up. But what should we apologize for? Well, the federal government should apologize for everything that happened after the Civil War, because they basically ran everything. They allowed things to happen. They stopped protecting the civil rights of people because, again, they didn't think that they deserved civil rights. That is wrong. So there's an apology should be made for Jim Crow. Now, for what happened during slavery, well, we had a war to settle this. Everybody wants to tell me that the Civil War was fought over slavery. If that's the public relations angle that you're going to go with, then you can't get more of an equalizer, of an apology, than all the number of white people that died freeing the slaves. The other thing is, you got to look when you're talking about reparations, you're talking about taking money from people that may have had nothing to do with it. So, taking money from people who actually fought to end it. So, you're going to tell the person whose grandfather or great-grandfather, what would it be, great-great-great-grandfather? Whoever, some of his ancestors went out and died to free the slaves, that now he owes you money because the people he fought, people his ancestors fought, had slaves. Where's the logic in that? See, in order to do this fair, you got to punish only the people that had slaves, the people whose ancestors had slaves, because otherwise you're just punishing an entire race. You're going to punish the whites for the blacks, for what the whites did to the blacks. You know, when you're going to judge someone purely on their race, you're not helping anything. I thought the goal of Martin Luther King was a society where race did not matter. Only the character of the individual mattered. Punishing somebody for something they had no part in and actually were opposed to is not good. Where's your justice in that? There is no justice in it. Now, then you get people like a lady I know whose great-great-grandfathers, one was on one side of the battle and one was on the other. You take part of her money? You see, it gets complicated. And whenever you're talking about paying reparations from the federal government, you're either talking about taking money from everybody, which means you're taking money from black people to pay black people for the way that they were treated. There's no logic in that one whatsoever. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be considered whenever you're looking at this subject. Again, does the government need to apologize for certain actions? Yes. I do believe something needs to be said and an apology needs to be made for Jim Crow. I think we need to come out as a society and make a proclamation stating end of subject. We messed up. We're sorry, and even a statue or something where we are promising that this will never happen again. And that's what we need to do. We need to make an assurance this will never happen again. Not to blacks, not to Hispanics, not to Muslims, not to whites, to nobody should be treated differently based on the color of their skin. We need to make an affirmation of this. But then we need to move on. We can't keep coming back to the same thing and saying, when are you going to treat us right? Well, if you're being treated legal, I mean, I was watching a show the other day where a lady was talking about systemic racism, how it's built into our legal systems. And she was asked, what law? Another gentleman said the same thing, and he was asked. He said Georgia was racist. The state of Georgia was racist. And he was asked, okay, show me the laws. And he pointed out Jim Crow. Well, Jim Crow's 50 years old. They're done. They've been expelled. Show me the law now. Blaming the laws of today that are not racist and saying, but it's systematic racist. No, it's not. The laws have already corrected. They've been corrected. Stop looking back and start looking forward. When we start doing this as a society, there's no telling where we'll go. There's no telling how far we'll go. We need to stop. Stop trying to be divided by the color of our skins. Stop being divided by where our ancestors came from. You're here in the United States, you're a U.S. citizen, you're a citizen, and a subject. Stop with the division. Reparations, it's in some ways a great concept, but I don't see how it's going to work practically. How are you going to bill only the people that were involved and give money only to the people who, again, were involved, whose ancestors were involved in this? Because otherwise, you're just making a mockery of all of it. You're totally eliminating what you're supposed to be apologizing for. If you're going to apologize for slavery and you make reparations to the descendants of slaves, then it should only go to the descendants of slaves. This is the thing that we need to look at. The society needs to recognize it would be a lot easier and it would be a lot more productive if we as a society came together and moved on. Admit the mistakes of the past and move on. But nobody wants to move on. Too many people want to make sure they got their victim card to play. And that's not going to get us to move on. That's going to get us to move backwards. Don't believe me? Take a look. We used to believe that segregating people by the race was wrong. Now we see that it's okay as long as it's that, we have black-only graduations, minority-only graduations from Harvard. Why? Because they don't want to be with the white people. You're going backwards. And this is not a good move. Some people do see this, but it seems like the vast majority of society, or at least what you see on the mainstream media, seems to think this is okay. We need to divide. Division is not good. We need to start coming together. Alright, folks, that's Publius's view on the idea of reparations. I know a lot of people may agree or disagree. It's going to be a hot button issue. And you're going to see how, in reality, unless the Democrats put this in a reconciliation bill, which I'm not sure how they're going to be able to pull that one off, it ain't going to go nowhere. And which means that you're going to have a group of people that, once again, are going to sit back and say, see, we get the shaft again. You're not helping. It's time for us as a society to come together on certain basic views and move forward. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. If you did, hit that like button. Please share this with your friends. A little common sense going into certain things would take us a lot further. Show it with your friends. Please, if you have not subscribed, definitely do subscribe to this program. And if you want to help contribute to this program, you can do so through the channel. Thank you all very, very much, and you all have a wonderful week.